All right, so hello everyone and welcome. My name is Amy Turner and I'm the Operations Director at the Autism Alliance. I'll be your moderator for this evening's presentation and I'm joined by my colleague Allison Daigle, our Executive Director. Before we begin, we just want to let everybody know that this is being recorded and you're welcome to keep your camera on or off, whatever is most comfortable for you. We do ask that you remain muted unless you're speaking to help minimize the background noise. We will have time for questions. So, Pia, would you like to have people ask questions throughout the presentation or hold them till the end?
Come throughout. That's fine.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to write in the chat or raise your hand if you have any questions and we'll get to you. So let's get started. Today, we're excited to welcome Sopheap Nhim. She is a board certified behavior analyst and educator. She holds two master's degrees of science. One is in autism spectrum disorders, and the other is in education with a focus on transformative teaching and learning. In addition to her BCBA, Sopheap is also a licensed speech and language assistant, and she's also a certified yoga instructor and social emotional learning and mindfulness facilitator, which is awesome. Tonight, she'll be walking us through practical ways that parents can strengthen partnerships with their child's team, which means like choosing meaningful goals, supporting skill development across the home, school, and community settings. So we're so happy to have you here, Sophia. I'm going to pass the mic over to you so you can get started.
Hey, thanks for that introduction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had all these slides with my credentials, but I think I'll just skip right past that. And welcome everybody here. I know the weather's been crazy, so hopefully our internet is stable. And again, if you have questions as I'm going along, please feel free to just unmute and ask the questions that that seems to be the best way because then you might forget what your question was, or out of context, I might forget what my answer may have been. So it's helpful for everybody to just unmute and ask the questions. Just a disclosure, I'm not making any money off of anything that I might talk about. I'm going to mention a little bit about ACT, which I know was presented a few weeks ago now, but there was a tool that I thought would be really beneficial, especially through the lens of this like caregiver relationship and developing goals with caregivers. And I'm not using any commercial products or promoting them. So again, we're going to talk about like why collaboration matters, right? Like why is it so important to have alignment of goals with your providers, and how do you select those meaningful goals? We're going to talk about using behavior skills training. I use it a lot in ABA, but it seems like it's an underutilized tool. So it's a really good way to train train somebody, whether it's a client, the child themselves, parent, or one of my behavior technicians. I do use behavior skills training a lot. And then just talking about, communication, fidelity, and when you're taking that data, generalization of all of the skills that you've decided to work on. And then, we're going to do a little wrap up of like next steps. What can you take away from this training tonight that you're going to try to implement? So by the end of this training, you'll be able to describe why collaboration is so important and, why does it drive such lasting change? Um, we're going to be able to identify how to select goals that are aligned with family values plus clinical need. Again, you'll be able to utilize behavior skills training and apply strategies to improve generalization skills. But first, a little mindfulness exercise, because, everybody is busy and everybody's working so hard. So we just want you to take a moment for yourself because I don't think caregivers do that enough. I know I certainly don't. So um, if you're willing, um, you could leave your camera on or turn it off, and just find yourself comfortable position. Could be you could lay down, nobody's going to tell, or you can just sit in your seat and just, relax into your chair. It's, we're just going to do a quick breathing exercise followed by some guided meditation. And hopefully we'll set the pace and the tone for the rest of the evening. So again, if you're comfortable or if you would like to turn your camera off, I'm okay with that too for now. What we're going to do is for the next couple of breaths, we're going to do what's called tense and release. So what that means is on an inhale, you're going to tense certain muscle groups that I'll tell you about. And then when you exhale, you're going to release all of the tension in those muscles. Okay, so let's start with, again, finding that comfortable spot. You can, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes or you can set your gaze hopefully somewhere other than your laptop screen because you don't want that light in your eyes if possible. And on your next inhale, excuse me, just had a tickle. Okay, so on your next breath in, I'll just demonstrate it first and then we'll do it together. So you're gonna take a deep breath. And once you've taken that deep breath, you're gonna hold it while you're tensing the muscles that we talk about. Hold it for about 2-3 seconds. And then when you exhale, you release those muscles. Okay, so for the next breath, you're going to take a breath. And during this time, you're going to tense all the muscles in your face, neck, shoulders, and arms. Hold it and release. And then on your next breath, we'll take a deep breath together. And on this breath, as you're inhaling, you're going to tense the muscles in your shoulders, stomach, back, and sides. So we'll take a deep breath together. Hold it and release. For the next breath, we're going to tense our leg muscles, upper and lower leg muscles, and even your toes. If you can like crunch them up and like roll them up into a ball, if you have shoes on, it might be a little difficult, but you'll take a deep breath, scrunch all those muscles in your toes and your upper legs and lower legs. Hold that breath for 1, 2, 3, and release. And then for our last and final breath together, you're going to tense every single muscle in your body possible, starting from your forehead all the way down to your toes. So you're going to scrunch all those muscles, everything from head to toe, arms, back, shoulders, legs. Take a deep breath in while you're doing it. Hold it, and then let it all go. And let yourself relax into that for a moment. Just feel the difference in your body. Are you still holding tension in your neck or your shoulders? And if you are, just take a breath or two on your own and relax for a moment. For the next few moments, you're going to just breathe on your own at your own natural pace, but stay tuned into my voice. And again, your eyes can be closed. Hopefully you're relaxed by now. And if you feel yourself starting to think about your to-do list or what you have to do next, it's okay because that's normal. But as soon as you catch yourself, if you can redirect your attention back to my voice, that would be wonderful. Daily, you all give so much of your energy, patience, and your advocacy to a loved one in your life, right? That's why you're here. But right now, you don't need to fix anything. You don't have to manage anything, explain, or plan anything. This is your time, your mindful moment. On your next breath, again, notice where you're holding your tension. Perhaps it's in your jaw or your neck, your chest, your hands. If they're clenched, unclench them. With each exhale, allow yourself to relax into your spot, sinking deeper and deeper. Daily, you're all walking this path that requires so much effort. Some days are beautiful and you have these breakthrough moments that just make you smile ear to ear. And some days are heavy with a lot of uncertainty and maybe a little bit of loneliness. It's an isolating experience. All of the days and all of your feelings are valid. If any of those emotions come up for you, whether it's just exhaustion or frustration, pride or love, acknowledge them, but without judgment. And if it feels comfortable, place your hand over your heart. Feel that steady rhythm beneath your palm. That heartbeat has carried you through every single day so far. Silently repeat to yourself, or you can say it out loud, you're muted anyway. Tell yourself, I cannot pour from an empty glass. I am doing the best that I can, and I am allowed to rest. Take this next moment to picture your loved one. Notice them, their essence, their uniqueness, the way they laugh, the small things they do that make them them. And allow yourself to feel that love without any weight or responsibility. Now think about the other caregivers in this Zoom room, feeling similar to how you are now, loving deeply, worrying daily, but still showing up every day. On your next breath, as you inhale, breathe in that connection with everyone in the room. And exhale that isolation, because you are not alone in this. On your next breath in, breathe in that strength. And exhale your self-doubt. Breathe in self-compassion. And exhale self-criticism. You deserve the same care that you give so freely. And as we get ready to end our practice, I want you to set an intention. Nothing big, nothing overwhelming, just something small, a small act of kindness that you can offer yourself daily. Maybe it's just to take a pause, a break, a nice hot tea. Maybe it's texting funny memes to a friend, or just a few minutes of silence in your car before you walk into your house. On this final breath together, when you breathe in, just set that intention. And when you exhale, remember that you're doing incredible work. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and sit up and meet me back on the screen. All right. So why does collaboration matter? um, because skills, they have to live beyond the session, right? Like that's why we're teaching these skills. Like we don't want to teach anything in isolation. Um, and caregivers, you are all the key to success. You're the key to that consistency. Without your feedback, without your input, without your efforts every single day, we as providers cannot do our jobs well either. And collaboration leads to lasting change. I know for myself, if I have physical therapy, I can fake it, right? I can say, oh, yeah, I'm doing my physical therapy every day. But if I'm really not doing it on my own and following through with those things, um, you can tell because my knee will not get better, my stride will not improve, right? So that collaboration is an important part here. But collaboration changes the outcome because then you're in it together. It's a shared partnership between yourself and the family or the provider. You share that ownership and responsibility. It gives you that real life practice, right? I mean, collaboration is one of my favorite things to do, whether it's, working in homes with families or in a school environment. I can think of so many times where I have tunnel vision and see things one way. But when I'm collaborating with a parent or when I'm collaborating with other service providers, all of that feedback and all of that knowledge, you know, there's a happy medium somewhere um, to teach a skill or to learn how to do something in a new way in a new light. And collaboration also requires a bit of a mind shift change. I was saying before we started the session, it was like, earlier on in my career, you kind of learn one thing and you want to teach it by the book. But then as you're meeting with families and as you're, working so closely with their children or other family members, you realize that maybe the books aren't right all the time, right? So at the beginning of my career, it's like, caregivers are implementers. They're going to do the work when we're not there. And then I'd go home like, I don't know why they didn't just can take that data on their child, or why did they, put them on the toilet every 15 minutes like we talked about. Um, but so now I shift it, right? Caregivers are the experts on their children. Like I'm just simply there to like give a little bit of guidance, but if just because I determined 15 minutes was the interval for you to toilet your child, and you say to me, but Sophia, they're only toileting 15 minutes after each meal, right? So it kind of like it's a light bulb moment, right? I take my data, I think I'm doing it well, but then parents are like, yeah, but my kid's not the same when you're not here. And I can't argue with that, right? So instead we think like, how can we change the way we're teaching a skill to make it make sense for their family, to make it make sense for their lifestyle and their routines? How do we make it easier um, for everyone? There are certainly barriers to collaboration. I think most people in the room right now are caregivers. So you know that there's just never enough time, right? And you're burnt out and you're tired. Maybe you're working full time also. So burnout is a real thing. Um, and unaligned expectations, which we'll get to later, right? I work with a student who used to like put as much food in his mouth as possible. And for me, because I did not want him to choke in my care, I'm like, okay, we'll set, 15 times. We want you to chew your food 15 times. And mom's like, I'm just happy that he took one bite instead of like four in a row, right? So again, you want to find that happy medium because like progress is progress. And sometimes I think we forget that. And I know as a behavior analyst, this next one, too much jargon. Um, do I know technical language? Absolutely. Do I include them in my report? Yes. However, if I'm sitting across the table from a parent, especially if a parent that's new to in-home ABA, I'm not going to use the big language and all the jargon and all the acronyms. I'm going to, just have a basic conversation that everybody can understand. Um, so before we get too far into it, I just would like for you to just pause and just reflect a little bit about what collaboration looks like for you currently. Are you working with a provider? Are you a provider working with a family? What does it look like for you? when has it made a difference, or have you met anyone that you're collaborating well with? And, I don't know if anybody wants to share, like I get a little mixed review here. Some people are like, I'm working with a great provider and the collaboration is great. And others are like, we just don't see eye to eye. And hopefully by the end of this, for those of you who are not seeing eye to eye with your providers, we can get you there. So just think a minute and feel free to unmute. Anybody want to share? And it could be, it could be in homes or in school, any type of collaboration.
Well, from a educational and ABA standpoint, when I used to work in the schools and the homes, I did find it very much easier to collaborate when you were working in the home rather than in the school. In the school, it seemed very busy, and then you had like the little, one page thing that you would send home. And really, the only time that you really, got down and really had a long conversation was the IEP meeting, and that's only an hour. So I've always found it kind of tough in that role when you're working in the school doing the collaboration piece. It's very hard to like keep in touch with all the families that you're working with.
Yes, there's never enough, and there's so many meetings that like the ones you really need to collaborate with are also in a different meeting. So
Yeah.
I hear that. Angel, did you have a something you wanted to say?
Yes. We are looking into ABA. My daughter's on a wait list for ABA,
Mm-hmm.
but we work very closely with my daughter's pediatrician. He's an amazing person. When I told him that I suspected my one year old had autism, he didn't like try to like, hey, she's only one, like it's way too early. He didn't like he's like, okay, where do you want to go? I told him where I wanted to go, and sure enough, she is on the spectrum. And he's been very, very supportive. I mean, I also have several other children on the spectrum as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to say that it's really nice when you have like someone outside that doesn't like say, hey, like maybe we should like defer your thinking another way, where he just supports everything that how I feel. And I think that's really important, especially when it comes to our children, because as my pediatrician has said to me several times over and over again, the parents are the ones that know their child the best. They may
Mm-hmm.
have gone to school, but the parents usually know better.
Absolutely. You'll hear me say that time and time again. You are the expert on your child. I see a very small window, a very small glimpse into your life. But you know your child through and through, inside and out, right? So that's great. I don't know if there's anybody else, but you can always call out if you want. So again, what makes a goal meaningful, right? Like hopefully, again, if we're talking about in-home ABA, hopefully they're using appropriate assessments, right? Based on age, need, development. For little ones, maybe you're using the Early Start Denver model or the CARS. If you're a little bit, a little bit later in life, maybe the VB map. If you're like that preschool age child or have some big language gaps, right? Or maybe when a little bit older in life, maybe they're doing the social skills, improvement system. So, you know, what I'm hoping that whoever you're working with, if they're doing an assessment on a child, they're using the right one because there's so many out there. And you know what else is going to make it meaningful? It should have to improve the quality of your life, right? Sometimes I'll meet somebody, like a teacher or something, and they'll say something about a student, and it doesn't, maybe that student is just doing like some vocalizations that might irritate them, right? The teacher or some other kids in the classroom, but it's not really going to change the quality of our client's life too much, right? Like it's not that impactful. It's like maybe annoying, but we want to make sure we're looking at goals that are going to improve the quality of lives. Of course, if it's like vocalizations that are loud and disruptive, that's one thing. But if they're just like every now and again, like we might have to like figure out how to get past that, right? Um, Also, does it fit into your daily routine, right? Like I kind of joked a little bit, a few minutes ago about making sure a client chewed 15 to 20 times for each bite. But when you have 20 minutes for lunch at school, like, that is not, I mean, yes, I think it is best practice, but I don't know that I would really like actually work on a goal to make somebody, chew 20 times because it's not going to fit into a daily routine, right? And it has to align with the family's values, right? Because again, I'm working with a client who church on Sundays was really important to them, right? So we had to figure out like how can we get your child to church and to be appropriate, right? That sitting skills, increasing leisure skills was a big deal because if he was not able to engage in anything other than an iPad or a TV, going to church was not going to work for them. I'm jumping ahead. And then also addressing those clinical priorities, right? I'm insurance based when I'm working in homes. So, and even insurance is getting really tough with what's allowed and what's not allowed. But, we want to make sure that there's a clinical, social, significant reason to address certain barriers or skills deficits. And again, um, we want to make sure, like, hopefully when you're working with someone, I want to make sure that I'm figuring out what it is that's important to you. I have families that want to go to church. I had a family that did Sunday dinners every Sunday for like their whole lives. Then they had this little one who was diagnosed with autism really early in life, and they stopped Sunday dinner. It was, as they say, it was heartbreaking for them, and it was a mom, a daughter, and also mom, dad, and a daughter, and the daughter had a child, and they would have to take turns going to this family dinner. So we worked on going out to dinner, and we started at Burger King drive through, right? But then over time, actually it was only a couple, like after 3 months they were able to take them to like Chi-Chi's and Applebee's and all these other places, which was really important to them, and of course to their family dinner that they go to this certain spot every Sunday. And again, we want to figure out, I'm going to teach the skill, but how many natural opportunities are there for this client to practice this skill, right? So we want to make sure, again, that it fits into their life, and it fits into their family capacity. There are so many families right now, which I'm sure you all know, whose children are being raised by grandparents, right? Grandparents are caregivers for so many of my clients right now that I'm not, first of all, I don't use extinction procedures anymore, but also I'm not going to ask a 85-year-old grandmother, to withhold, Jimmy's iPad when Jimmy's like 6'2", really aggressive, and going to harm grandma, right? So we want to make sure like this the goal in whatever you're deciding to do isn't going to be like so out of their element that it's impossible for them to do, right? And then I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking of right now, but I want to make sure that when we're working with families and when we come into your homes, be forthcoming with that, right? With all that information. Tell me what's important. Going to the movies, if that's what you want to do with your family, that is important. You have younger children too. That should, and since, you know, Bob came along, we're no longer going to the movies as a family, and his siblings are resenting them. That's a big, impactful experience for the whole family. And my whole thing is not making your world smaller. How can we make your world bigger, right? So every time I'm coming up with some clinical needs or some goals, I think big picture, like what is this going to look like in 5 months, right? Um, so anyways, we during one of the sessions that I came to, the BCBA had talked about the ACT matrix, the ACT model rather. But this, let me see. So I like the ACT matrix, especially when I'm first working with someone, because it really helps gauge um, what an aligned family values to clinical needs. So you actually start in the bottom right. Let me just see, Amy, can you see this? Did it jump to the right screen, or is it still on my slideshow?
We're still on the slide. I see the ACT matrix with the five senses.
Okay, so oh, we'll
It's
not do that.
so I
Let me
can
just,
see like your whole internet there, like all your tabs and everything.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna, oops. So I'm just gonna show
That's
you
good.
this. So
That's better. That's
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
yeah, so this is the ACT matrix, and you start at the bottom right. So again, the first question is like, what's important to you? Like, what are your family values? What do you want to see happening for your family member? So like for example, you might say, I really want him to make a friend, right? Or as maybe I want to make a friend, right? So then you move over to the left. So what things are keeping you from making a friend, right? It could say, I get really shy, I get embarrassed, maybe I'm not sure how to ask somebody to play with me. They're going to think I'm dumb. They're going to think I'm weird, right? So these are things that I'm talking to with the family. And this is just an example of making a friend. And then we go up to number 3. So when those thoughts and feelings come up, like when they come up for you, like what does it look like, right? I might push him push past somebody and just like run away, or I tell them they're stupid, so then I don't have to worry about if they want to be my friend, because I don't want to be their friend anyway, right? And then in the top right here, it's some things that you can do um to get to making that friend, like what that committed action. What's one thing, Bob, that you can do tomorrow when you go to school to make a friend? And he might say, oh, well, I guess I can smile at somebody out at recess, right? Or I guess I could say, hey, do you want to go on the seesaw with me? So, but so you can use this matrix, and I'll put all these links in the comments after. But I think it's a good tool because again, you talk about like what is really important to you, right? What shows up, what's unpleasant, what's keeping you from doing that thing, right? What behaviors, again, keep you, what behaviors come up that also keep you from doing that thing? And okay, now that we know that this is your fear, what can we do to move forward? Um, and this is a nice tool too to talk to a family, just to kind of gauge like where they're at, and are they a family that are like, okay, we're going to do this thing, and I want to do A, B, and C, and I don't want to sit home anymore with my family, and I want to be part of the community again, or maybe it's just a family that's not their thing. They don't care that they're sitting home, and what's more important to them are toileting or quality sleep, right? So you can just use this as like a tool for like an interview tool, essentially. So how do you choose skills to target, right? So again, I have to start with those family values plus the clinical need, right? So this is like before I'm even doing any type of assessment. So I have an interview, I talk about what they want to see their child doing in 3 to 5 years. I do an assessment, and we try to meet in the middle, right? So this is what you want, this is what we came up with, and let's talk about how we can make that happen, right? Because again, like if you've gone through an assessment, some of the things are like, okay, I don't really care right now about turn taking, or whatever it is. Like sometimes clinical needs, things that come like rise to the surface as being important, aren't important to the family. So we have to figure that out together. Any questions so far? So again, this is just a case example, like originally, right? Um, we're going to say when I first started my career in behavior analysis, right? Compliance is, I hate the word compliance, but that's what they call it. We call it compliance training, right? And for compliance training, it might be something like come here, right? So that originally would be the goal, but again, we want to align it with a family value. So why is come here important? Well, because in the community, when Allison's running into traffic, we want to say, hey, Allison, come here. So she'll come over and not be hit by the car, right? So again, come here. If you just did an assessment, you might say, oh, yeah, compliance is an issue, but it's not really that important unless there's a link, unless it's important for the family to go out into the community together, right? And again, like why is that more meaningful? Just because you want to access the community, you don't want your world to get smaller, you want it to get bigger, right? And then another example of a goal was, this child will engage in structured play. All right, seems like a good goal, but when parents look at that, they're like, well, what do I care, right? But then I think about my kiddo whose family really wanted to go to church, right? So it was a big deal to get him to engage in some more structured play, novel activities, and games, because unless we were going to bring a TV or an iPad into church, he wasn't going to be able to go, right? So we worked on teaching him, you know, how to color, write his name, read books, play with things like trains, and magnetiles. They were a little loud, but it was okay. Magnetiles and other things. So then, like now, they go to church with like a little suitcase with things that keeps him busy, right? So now that goal is more meaningful, teaching my child how to, engage in leisure activities, because now they've opened a whole door of not just church, but going out to dinner. And going on vacations and things like that, which we'll also get to, right? So how do we teach these skills? I'm sure most of you know about discrete trial training, natural environment training, shaping, right? So think about baby saying utterances for the first time, like the ba 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 turns to ba ba turns to bottle, right? Or fading, right? Thinking about teaching somebody how to ride a bicycle. They start on a tricycle, then they have, their oh my goodness, training wheels, and then you're pushing them along, right? But I like number 5, right? This behavior skills training, which that's what I'm going to jump into next. But behavior skills training is a comprehensive way of teaching a skill. And but regardless of what you use or what you're using with their technician, make sure that you're taking data, because that is really the most important part. But this talk isn't about data collection, so I'm not going to get too far into that one. But behavior skills training. Has anybody used this before? You just quick yes or no. So behavior skills training. So, and I'll have an example of some data sheets for behavior skills training and a sample of how to use a token board with behavior skills training. So again, we want the steps for whatever skill it is. Say you using a token board written, right? So, and we're explaining it verbally, like, okay, so here's how to implement a token system. I write it out. I explain it to the caregiver or my technician, and then I give them an opportunity to ask questions, some clarifying questions. I initially will demonstrate a skill, how to use this token board. And I also, if the client is old enough, I go over these pieces with the client too, not just mom or dad or my technician. So I demonstrate the skill, how it will be utilized with our client or student, and then we practice the skill. I'll model it, and then I'm going to watch you model or watch you engage in it, and then I'm going to give you some feedback, right? I'm going to say, wow, that was really great. Or, hey, as soon as he said, can I have some chocolate? Give him the chocolate right away, right? We want to make sure we're reinforcing that verbal behavior right away. So these are the basic 4 steps of behavior skills training. And I actually Okay, so why does it work? Because it's hands-on. You get something to look at. I'm going to observe. You're going to watch me doing it. I'm going to observe you doing it. I break it down into really small components, and at the end of it all, it really builds confidence. Like when I'm using behavior skills training in the house with a caregiver or a provider, we can both walk away feeling good. Sometimes with some of the other ways to teach a skill, you're like, oh, I kind of think I get it right. But you get live feedback in the moment, which is what I really like in terms of using behavior skills training. And everyone's engaged in the skill in the same way because it's all written down. So I don't think those links are gonna show up. But so token board instructions. So I actually just wrote this the other day for a student in my building, right? So this is all the things. Like, so I said I can earn tokens for finishing my work, and if I initiate the work within 2 minutes for completing assignments or using the bathroom at appropriate times, right, within a certain window. I explained how many tokens are available each day, what they're worth. Um, and again, we modeled it. It's like, all right, raise your, like, oh, here's your work. And as soon as you start doing your work, wow, good job. I love how you started working. Here's a token, right? So I actually trained the teacher and then trained the teacher with the student. So it was like a lot of modeling and practicing. And then, we gave feedback right away. Again, great job starting your work right away. I love that. Here's a token. And then, we want to make sure we cover all our bases, right? Make sure that teachers know that once somebody earns a token, we are not taking them away, like ever. Um, they should be delivered immediately, right? So just like some guidelines in case they forget when I walk out the door. But so the best part about behavior skills training is this feedback form that I use, which again, very clear. How did you do with skill taught would be implementing the token board, right? Were you clear and concise? Did you demonstrate understanding? How did you do, so I just broke everything down. How did he do during the modeling or role playing, the rehearsal, and then the feedback? So, gives you just like something to like walk away with so you know how to improve yourself the next time. Um, any questions on behavior skills training? Okay. So measuring success, we do that by observation, right? Um, Coaching, seeing if how their confidence level is. Has the child increased skills? Again, that data is really important because, sometimes it depends on the person. Sometimes you're like, oh, it was terrible because you only remember the bad things about what went wrong during toileting, right? And then other times, like, oh, yeah, it was great. They peed, you know, 3 times, but they didn't tell me about like the 20 times that they missed the toilet, right? So we want to make sure that we're increasing those skills by taking that data, and are we able to generalize it? Um, I think that feedback form is the other. Excuse me, is the one that we already looked. Let me just open it up real quick. Yeah. So the problem with working for insurance-based companies is we have to have a lot of goals. And it's really difficult to avoid it, especially if you're using, these large assessments and they have all these deficits, and you're, trying to manage like 20 goals at a time. And that is a really big barrier, I think, to making progress because it, as a provider, is overwhelming for me, right? Um, but I have learned that we can just say we didn't target that goal, and that has to be okay too, for that utilization period. Technical language is pretty off-putting, right? When you're sitting across a provider and they're using, big language. I know, with extinction and all the other things. sometimes like, can you just tell me exactly what you're trying to say without using that terminology? And goals sometimes are only relevant during a session, right? I remember I was at a house actually recently where, you know, the client engaged in like this one thing, and we're like, okay, let's make it a goal. We can, start having him set the table, right? He hated it. He hated it. And in addition to that, they never set the table. Like this family, they, mom will make dinner, she'll plate the food, then bring it over to the table, and that's kind of how they ate. But for whatever reason, mom and I together were like, oh, yeah, he should have a chore. We should have him set the table. And we like spent this whole like caregiver training talking about setting the table and everything else. But then the next day or the next time I was there, we were like, that was so irrelevant. Like, you never set the table. Why are we doing this? So then we came up with, because again, that assessment, right? So we came up with something that made more sense, which is cleaning up after himself, cleaning up the toys, right? So that makes a lot more sense, right? Or things that are difficult to implement. Again, if caregivers don't even like have the capacity sometimes because they're tired and overwhelmed to take a data point, like, and then I'm bringing in this like 5-step process of how to wipe yourself out, after a bowel movement, like that's kind of a lot, especially if it's like a babysitter during that time, because it's not always mom and dad at the house, right? So we just want to make sure that we're thinking about who's going to implement the thing that we've come up with, and what is it going to look like, and I think that thing with setting the table really came out of, because at church they had this like big like banquet, and he was just like grabbing all the food. But anyways, so
Um,
how do I? Yes.
I just want to say something really, really quick. Was that so because my son is so much older, I
Mm-hmm.
do have this amazing reflection on the being back when he was younger and going through all these steps that you're talking about. And so like a couple of things that took a really, really long time for him to learn, like tying his shoes, for example, took 10 years. But you know what? As an adult, he's independent in tying his own shoes, which is really critical to his ADLs and him being to be able to do a task on his own. The second thing is taking care of his own, being responsible for his own belongings. Because when
Mm-hmm.
he's away from a caregiver, again, we're talking as they become an adult, having that skill of taking care of his own things has provided him with so much more independence and allowed him to have tools when he's on a van or a bus or wherever that he wouldn't have had he not have that ability to know he knows how to take care of his belongings. So
Absolutely.
sometimes these skills are so critical to long-term independence, and that's why I'm such a huge advocate of all of the work that you're talking about and doing, because when I see that, again, I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, we worked on skills, and now I see the real true benefit of learning them. It's a really exciting thing for me, and it's
Mm-hmm.
exciting for me to share that with you and everybody else, because I love that though that worked in that
Mm-hmm.
in over that period of time, and I call the BCBAs and tell them, oh my gosh, like the flexible thinking was the best thing we taught him, and I love being able to do that and share that with people, because sometimes it takes a lot longer to see those results carry
Mm-hmm.
over into adulthood.
And I think that's what happens is like parents are, I don't want, I, not to, it's like, I think we all get a little tunnel vision, right? Like in this moment right now, this is what I need, right? So you focus on that thing right now, setting the table, right? But then like what is that going to look like 5 years down the line? So I actually had worked with a client who was so aggressive all the time and self-injurious, biting herself, pulling her hair. Like it was a really, really difficult case. And the first time I met her, I went to her house. I went upstairs. She was already home watching TV. She would watch um, Frozen at the time for 10-second intervals on repeat for like 10 seconds for like 5 minutes, then the next 10 seconds. 5 more. She would do that from the time she got home at 3:30 until 10 o'clock at night. Dinner was served to her upstairs in her room. while she watched it. And mom was just so nervous about self-injury and being attacked and her attacking the sister. But I was like, let's teach her how to play with other things. It's, especially for these little ones, so we did. Turns out she loved Play-Doh and Century Toys and blocks and, so now and we broadened it. We brought it to the park, and she was able to like do some parallel play with a friend, not a friend, with a neighborhood, a neighbor. But like so again, like that long term thinking it's overwhelming sometimes, but that's our job, right? To like help caregivers get through that moment and say, but what does this look like long term? Um, and so how do we get there? Communication. It's key. Be respectful. Like the rolling of the eyes and why didn't you take data? And I can't, it's only a second, but the data sheet's across the house on the refrigerator, right? So, make it make sense for their family, right? So I have Google Sheets and mom's like, I can just pull up my Google Sheet on the phone and I do it that way. Or she just has like a note app. And she doesn't put the data in, like uh, she'll actually text me like, hey, he pointed at a stop sign today and said, stop, So she doesn't expect me to respond, on a Sunday at 4 o'clock, but I have that data now, right? So that's kind of like where we've compromised. Be really clear, like, hey, I think that actually the other day he had a dentist appointment and the dentist was like, he should be flossing more. And I looked at mom, I was like, is that an important skill right now? And she's like, absolutely not. She's like, he's brushing his teeth and that's all that matters, right? She said, we will work on flossing at a later date. Perfect. So again, that collaborative, like, do you want to hold him down while you're flossing him? Like, is that something you want to spend time doing? No, right? And build trust, which just takes time. I've been working with this particular family for like 3 years now. I've known him since he was 3. And the growth that he's made, like, mom just kind of trusts what we're doing because I never just do something on my own without her feedback, right? And again, like that all goes to choosing your words wisely. Oh, he's so non-compliant. Well, maybe he just needs a little more support, right? Or, oh, that mom is so lazy. I think she just enjoys some like me time because I know I do, right? People need to be recharged. In some engagement strategies, again, like validate all of their efforts, all of it. I don't care if it's I expected 20 data points, over the weekend for because you're toileting them every 15 minutes. If you were like, hey, we got to the toilet twice, yes, that's amazing. That's 2 more times than you did last weekend, right? Talk about the barriers. Well, it's really hard to like sit them on the toilet when we're at the church because A, B, and C, right? Celebrate those progresses. Actually, this parent, like, she was amazing. We toileted her child, potty trained her child over 2 weekends, which was great. And share meaningful data. Like, I take data all the time, but if I'm not showing you the graphs or the improvement, or like, hey, what happened here? Oh, he had a cold. That's why he was engaging in more self-injury, right? So we want to just open communication, validating all of the things, all of the effort, all of the barriers, all of the progress. Um, and it starts early, planning like generalization from day one, right? Actually, recently we've been teaching her son how to shower. And we had this like task analysis. It was 15 pictures long, and we were going to do the thing. And then it was like, get in the shower, turn on the water, test it, then get in. And then mom was like, oh, yeah. So, she was talking about it, and she did it the other way around. He would get in, turn on the water, and like she would test it then. And I'm like, I get why you want to do that because you're right now showering him and holding that nozzle. I said, but in a year from now, when he's doing it on his own, if he gets into that shower and then turns on the water, he's either going to get burned or be really cold. And she's like, you're right. Right. So again, we want them to be able to carry these skills, right? And like today might make sense for you to do it, but what is this going to look like a month, 2 months, a year from now? Right. So we plan on that generalization day one. Does this make sense to teach? How many times can we teach it? Where and when and who can also teach it? Can we send it to school? I didn't talk about school a lot, but everything that I do with mom or any family, I send things to school, visuals, um, TAs, or task analyses, all the things. So we're teaching the same things across people, setting, routines. Again, consistency. Everyone gets everyone gets whatever we're teaching. Mom's very willing to share, and I'm I have consents to talk to everybody, right? So again, simple tools, right? We don't need crazy Excel spreadsheets and Google Sheets and everything else. What is going to make sense for that family? Paper, pencil, a text message. Maybe you're not open to that as a behavior analyst. I have barrier. I've got some blurred barriers with families, and I allow it, but not everybody does. And again, brief summaries. Make it simple, something everybody can understand. If a TA is working with a student for the first time in a classroom, can they pick this thing up and understand what I'm trying to teach? Right? Action steps. This is for you. What can you do today? Tomorrow? One thing that you can target, something you can change with a provider that you're working with or with a family that you're working with to make your sessions more meaningful, your goals more meaningful, and the time that you're spending together more meaningful. Like what can you say? Maybe you're even reluctant or hesitant about addressing how something's going, right? How will you approach it now? So again, collaboration really does drive meaningful change. Goals should fit real life every day across multiple people and settings. Behavior skills training, big fan of it because it really does empower everybody involved. So it's nerve wracking to like role play and do this thing in front of somebody, but you get used to it. And consistency is the key to that lasting change. And again, progress isn't linear, it's up and down. As long as the trend is going in the right direction over time, I'm happy with that. Ran out of time. Any questions or comments? Don't have time for that. I just aligned my things with the code of ethics, and I have some articles that might be useful for some of you to read if you're interested in learning more about some evidence-based strategies and working, collaborating with caregivers and such. Something in the chat.
Yes, we have Angel just thanking us and that it was great and that she learned so much. Thank you for being here,
Uh,
Angel.
Thanks, Angel.
yeah, and I'm not in a rush, so I'm happy to answer any questions or give you more examples. Um,
I just wanted to say like a couple takeaways because as you're talking, I'm just like going back into my memory of like all the families I've worked with and all the homes I've been in and everything. And like something that I really think is important for the parents to know is that like don't just take the goals that are written for you. Some of them are very generic, like the come here. If that's not something that's going to work for your family, definitely like look at the goals that are being written for your child and make sure that they're things that you also want to work on and that you're able to work on and
Mhm.
especially like leisure skills. And I know Allison also feels the same way about leisure skills, like being able to keep yourself occupied and be able to enjoy different things. Like that's a great goal to have for lots and lots of kids. And like don't get stuck too. Like you said, setting the table. Like it's so great that you were able to be like, what are we doing here? Like let's not. Like why did we
We
say
like
that we were going to do this?
brainstormed
Like
it for a whole
yeah, it's
hour. Then I'm like,
okay.
let's try. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, that's just a couple things that were coming to my mind throughout your presentation.
Yeah, but for the come here, like this family was like, oh, we used to go to the beach and go swimming and do all the things, and but they were afraid because he was a non-swimmer at the time, and she wasn't sure that he would be safe at the beach. And you know, that's when I first met them. And fast like the past 2 summers, they've gone to the beach, gone to the pool, have
Great.
got,
Yeah.
like so it's like really meaningful for them. And there's an older sibling and a younger one that's like, what? We're going to the beach, like
Yeah.
it was just like a joyful moment. And mom said the other day, like he asked, they were like walking along the water's edge and he had said something. She was talking to a friend and he was like, come on, mom, and she was like, and I went right away because I knew if I didn't, he might revert back to like just running away, which I don't know. Anyways, I get
Yeah.
excited about these things.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think that I like that you get excited because I think that it's really like learning to learn, right? That's
Mhm.
such a huge piece, especially for children that are level 3, right? Profoundly
Mhm.
autistic or on the profound side, like my son. And I remember I took him to Kohl's one time really, really early in the morning, like right when it first started. And when no one was in the store, and they have the big racks of clothes, and I walked over and then I said his name, Justin, Justin, and I taught him to say, "Here I am." And then
Mm.
we went a little few more, and I said, "Justin, Justin, here I am." It took me probably, I don't know, 10 minutes to teach him that skill, and he still has it to this day. So when I taught him that in this kind of generalized natural environment, like you talked about, right?
Mhm.
And I was able to tell the therapist, "Look what I did." It was, again, I felt good about that. And so having that relationship with the provider and, enjoying those successes wherever they come in different ways and
Yeah.
shapes and journey through. And I think it's just such a cool thing as a parent to be empowered through that learning process. And because again, as a parent, you're learning too. You're learning how to
Yeah.
teach your child in a very different way. So it can be really rewarding.
And I think as a field, behavior analysts we get a bad rap because we have our code of ethics is so strict,
Yeah. Yeah.
and blurring
Yeah.
those lines of like potential dual relationship. And, I think we've gotten a little bit better about that. But, if I think I would not be where I am with the families that I work with if I like maintained that boundary all the time of like, I'm sorry, you really need to text me between the hours. It's like
I agree with you a
I tell
lot.
my
I
mom
agree
or I
with you.
tell my family, my ringer is never on. Like if you don't want to forget something, you want to text me something quick. Again, I might not get to it right away, but I'll get to it as soon as I can. And
That's very
that
nice.
communication piece is huge. So,
It's very nice. Very nice of you to. That's so huge.
yeah.
Well, if nobody has any questions, I think we could probably wrap it up. I am going to stop the recording, but thank you so much, Sophia, for being here. It was really great. Nice seeing you.
Mhm.
You too.